Louise here. I'm gonna go on ahead and just talk about something. Now, just if I were to, join the WWE, it would be, the greatest, thing since, sliced bread. But I really need to get like through like getting like a job or something or freelance work or whatever to actually be able to do something like that. But I'd have to defend the title, drop the title, gain the title back, and travel, pay for traveling expenses. And yes, posting matches, posting promos, being on live national TV every single day. And however, facing like a lot of like a lot of people who are in like the same title picture going around, just having the same title run as every other superstar. And I wouldn't mind having said pro wrestling promos being the way they are. And the way things are going in the WWE, I'm just saying, it could get much better. And I would just like for everything to, go back to the way they were 20 years before. Like, this is like something that'd be great. And just getting rid of all those, or weeding out all those glazing motherfuckers. That'd be like, oh well, you can't say shit about the WWE product these days. Like, where? No, shut the fuck up, you glazing ass, soy boy, zoomer, alpha chumps. You don't get a say in what WWE product is produced. Us millennials and those boomers and Gen Xers that also grew up with the WWE have a right to have like the old school WWE back. We have a right to our childhoods. I mean, sure, cursing and all that other shit that went on in the Attitude Era and in the Ruthless Aggression Era. Sure, that shit may have happened back in those days, but the Ruthless Aggression Era was the beginning of the end of the WWE. But the WWE product was lackluster in the 2000s and in the 2010s. Forced and scripted promos and shit really did not do any good for the WWE product. Like, how are you gonna go and just say, oh well, we can't have the WWE product be like all natural promos? But it's like if I join the WWE now, I would have to go about the whole thing and about like have like a lot of having like said Like, all I'm just saying is I would love for, you know, things to, you know, progress on forward. You know, and I'm just saying, with the WWE being the way it is, it could be a good chance for me to get into the WWE. And with everything being going on, I'm just saying, the WWE has a lot of opportunity and a lot of chances to actually become the greatest thing since, you know, since the advent of the you know, of the whole entertainment of, or the whole theatrical entertainment of the pro wrestling business. Like the pro wrestling business getting in on the ground floor on like how people really want to, you know, have like a pro wrestling product that actually makes a lot more sense than just measly, seemingly forced promos that don't make one lick of motherfucking sense, dude. I mean, there are certain things that I like about WWE and certain things I don't. I mean, I would love for the WWE to actually go back to the way it, you know, used to be back when I was like a little kid, back in like the early all throughout the 90s and the early in the first 2 years of the early 2000s. Like, I would like for that, all that to be that way back again. Like, I would love to actually partake in the WWE now. But it was like so hard for people to get ahead in the WWE. So far ahead. Like, it's so hard for people to get ahead in the WWE these days. But for 2 decades, for like 2 decades and 2 years, it was aggressively difficult for talent to get ahead in the WWE. A lot of all those motherfuckers from back in the day got buried by mainstream wrestling talent in the WWE back in the day. Like Perry Saturn, Marty Jannetty, all these motherfuckers. Like, also the Headbangers, Ahmed Johnson. Gotta think, the WWE has had a history, a disrespectful history of holding down talent. Like, sorry, but you don't get the right to hold down talent because of the other mainstream, bigger, like, main uppercarters. You know, the main uppercarters getting, you know, a lot more attention. A lot of mainstream media attention as like larger than life egos in the WWE back in those times. Like, back when the WWE first started, back in 1950 something, it was like, it was like smaller guys getting bigger than it was like smaller first generation guys getting bigger, then the smaller second generation guys getting bigger, then the third generation guys getting bigger. Like, you got like your Hulk Hogan's, your Bret Hart's, your Shawn Michaels, your The Rock's, and your Steve Austin's, your John Cena's, your Kevin Nash's, all of them. Your Brock Lesnar's, your your Goldbergs, your Big Shows, your Andre the Giants, your Razor Ramones, your X-Pacs, your Stings. You got all those guys. You had Luna and Vachette. You had like the Fabulous Freebirds. You had like yeah, like, you know, said, you know, you had like all those guys who are, you know, 80s superstars, 60s superstars, 70s superstars in the WWE. You had like 90s superstars, and then you had like much younger pups, you know, like much younger pups getting into the WWE in like the early 2000s. Like you have like a lot of people, like you have like a lot of people going around just getting into the business of the WWE, and then bam, they're gone within 7 years, or at least 7 years, give or take a few months, or give or take a few years in the WWE. Like Perry Saturn and Marty Jannetty wasn't treated with the same respect. And then you had like Rick Steiner. Like he wasn't that big of a name as his brother Scott Steiner, Big Booty Daddy Papa Pump. You know. And then you like your Kanes, your Undertakers, your Triple H's. You got like your Randy Ortons, your Cowboy Bob Ortons, whoever Randy Orton's grandfather is. You got Peter Maivia, Rocky Johnson. And you got The Rock. You got like also Yokozuna, Doink the Clown, all those big mainstream guys. And also you got like Goldust, Dusty Rhodes. They got all those older generation of wrestlers. And if I get into the wrestling business at my age, I mean, I could have got into the wrestling business at the age of 18, but it wasn't a good time. It wasn't a good time to be a pro wrestler back in those days when I was 18. Like, it might be good someday in the future. We might end up going back to the Attitude Era, like the TV-14 era. We might go back to that. I don't know, but if I was to join it, I'd have like a wrestling gimmick, a wrestling name, like my wrestling gear. I'd have like to do like promos if I was on WWE television every single day. But given I don't have like a driver's license or said car, it would make that impossible to pay for traveling expenses, which would make it a lot harder for myself. But also you got like legends like Eddie Guerrero, Chyna, Lita, Trish Stratus, and the Cat. Yeah, you got all of them. All the legends. All the Hall of Famers like Kama Mustafa, Farouk, D'Lo Brown, Mark Henry, and yeah, and also you got Bradshaw. You got like a lot of them going, you know how it's going. in the WWE. So if the WWE was to like allow me to like go through NXT, you know, basically nowadays you'd have to hit New Japan Pro Wrestling and NXT, or NXT and New Japan Pro Wrestling, and then get into the WWE like that. Like, you have to go through like a wrestling school. You know, like go and like for real, go through like a pro wrestling school, hitting the hitting New Japan Pro Wrestling, hitting, you know, basically hitting, you know, basically hitting NXT, make a name for yourself in NXT, basically going through, you know, the WWE, and then become a legend within 10 years. Like, become a legend within 10 to or 2.5 decades. Like, you could become a legend and a big shot superstar these days within 10 years. It used to be you had to work your ass off your entire prime to become a legend in the business. Like, you had to like spend your entire prime back in the day to become a legend to get into the Hall of Fame. But at the rate that the WWE is probably going to go, you can become like a legend and a Hall of Famer within 7 to 10 years, tops. I mean, I could see myself as a WWE superstar, but I'd have to, you know, work my body to peak physical condition, get rid of the aches and pains, and yeah, doing just that. Paying for the training, paying for the weightlifting, pay for the gym memberships, and pay for the like traveling expenses, paying for like the dietary restrictions, and paying for like traveling expenses, and then start earning my money in pro wrestling, cutting my teeth in pro wrestling in like a significantly fewer wrestling promotions these days if I was to do that. But some people's careers wind down when they're in their 40s and 50s, or maybe even 60s, or maybe even 70s. Very few rarely quit in their 80s, 90s, and their hundreds. Like it's like getting to the point where it's like getting crazy. Like, if I was to drop the title and get into like title belt feuds, angle feuds, and then getting into tag team stables all over the place, I'd be thrown around in the WWE into story angles, bookings, and everything if I was to, you know, get booked in like a match or something like that if I was to join the WWE. But look at all these younger wrestling talent. Like, they're all new and fresh-faced and everything else. And all the older dudes are on their way out. Like, we ain't got no guys from the Attitude Era anymore. We barely have them still around. And we, you know, have only one left, and that's Triple H, and he's like the head. Like, I heard that he's like the new head of the WWE Creative Control, along with his wife Stephanie, and his brother-in-law I do believe it would be Shane O'Mac, but given that the WWE might end up going that far to actually have, you know, pro wrestling content being, you know, fresh and TV-14 based, and saying goodbye to the PG era because that shit was fucking garbage. I'm just saying, I don't want no part of the PG era bullshit. That was back in like 2009 to 2019. Like that was the long, like 2010 to 2021. That was the longest era of PG era product shit. And I don't like it very much. I honestly hate the PG era of pro wrestling. That shit is fucking tasteless garbage. I just hate the fucking tasteless garbage that the PG era provided. I'm more like the attitude and ruthless aggression era type of person. Cause I grew up on ruthless aggression and attitude era shit. And I would love, oh man, I would love to be a part of the ruthless slash attitude, like ruthless aggression slash attitude era bullshit. I would love to be a part of that in the WWE. But I'd have to, you know, change up, you know, my appearance, my nickname, my theme, my entrance video. You know, do all that shit that all the other WWE superstars did back in the day when they got to a certain milestone of popularity and height and peak in the WWE as far as their career is concerned. Then I would pretty much retire afterwards. Probably retire in my 50s, maybe even at the age of 60. Retire from the WWE if I was in my early 60s, and not waste my prime. Be like wrestling in my 30s, 40s, and 50s, and then at the age of 60, just like retire and become a Hall of Famer and a legend within 30 years. I mean, I would have to hit wrestling school all throughout, like, the remainder of my 20s, and bam, get a wrestling contract. And also, not to forget to mention Mick Foley. Yep, a lot of those dudes. A lot of the attitude and ruthless aggression and golden age era wrestling guys are now old-timey legends. So yeah, it would be a great time for me to become a pro wrestler if I wanted to be. Like when I was like 18, I did not want no part of being a pro wrestler. Absolutely not. They wound up going from like attitude era, ruthless aggression era to PG era. And the PG era shit happened in 2009. And then ended in 2021. That's a long ass time, man. Just saying. During that time, I didn't want to be a pro wrestler because I would have been fucking held down and be held back. I wouldn't get like an aggressive push to main event picture status. Just saying.